know, I can answer 5 different times, or I can get in a group, or whatever you want me to do.
All right. So, hello, my name is Chris Stretch. I am a psychotherapist and a peak performance coach. And I'm just super happy to be here. I'm super happy to be involved with PCA and the wonderful work they're doing in the community. So in just a second, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about me and how I got to this point. However, since we are all competitors, I mean, you wouldn't be sitting there listening to me, taking it all in if you weren't a competitor. We're going to do a quick little competition.
I like it.
Okay, so we have this cool way of signing in for workshops, and now keep in mind, I am competing against other PCA, trainers. So help me out here, right? And so I want you to put your phone either on a desk or on at the top of your thigh, and like a quick draw video game. What I want you to do is sign up for the workshop. So if you look at the slide right there, you text to this number, your number, first name, last name, and your email address. And there's a point to this exercise. I have 2 different points to this exercise. So I want you to put your full 100% effort into this. And when I say go, like a quick draw, get it done. When you're done, put it back on the desk, and we'll see who wins. Ready? On your marks, get set, go. Boom. Boom. All right. So first off, thank you, because now we know that you've been involved in this, and we can keep in touch with you. The second thing is that one of the things that I love about being around children is that they're so competitive, and they love competing. So one of the things that I will do is, for instance, it can take 30 minutes to get 7 and 8-year-olds in a circle to stretch, or we can say things like, I wonder if we could set the world record for the quickest circle for 8-year-olds. Ready, go. And I'll give them a pointer. If you touch your fingers together, you're going to get in a circle really quick. Go, boom. I turn around, 5 seconds later, they're in a circle stretching. So that's number 1. And number 2 is, and what we're going to learn is that this is really about double goal coaching and some other principles that PCA pushes. But if you won, that's great. You won. We love winning. If you were the last person to put your phone down, that's great too, because we can unpack that, we can learn from that. And what I think we're moving towards a new definition of success. To me, it's movement towards improvement. A little play on words, but we're really trying to set up successes anytime I improve, giving my best effort. So if you were the last one to put your phone there, let's not sweat it. There's always room for improvement if we learn. So that's a good example of some of the things we're going to get into. So next slide. Before we get into double goal coaching, I want to say a little bit more about myself. I am a psychotherapist locally, peak performance coach, work with teams. Really how I got to this place in my life is, unfortunately, but now fortunately, because I can tell the tale, through an addiction. About 8 years ago, I got to a really low point in my life, and I had to face up to an addiction. And I started getting on fire for the self-realization and self-discovery, and went back to school to be a psychotherapist because I wanted to help people that were struggling. And what I became flooded with, just flooded with, was all the times when I was an adolescent or a pre-adolescent where I struggled. And, I ended up being all-county quarterback at Esperanza High School, which is a big, huge school back in the day. It split up recently, but in Orange County. And then I went to UC Davis, played baseball and football. In the end, I was an all-region, all-conference baseball player. And then I went on to play minor league baseball. And let me tell you, I underachieved. I underachieved unbelievably, and I don't beat myself up about it anymore. I love that I can help people out, so they don't underachieve. But so in my self-realization during my early parts of sobriety, I realized my inability, to cope with my feelings on the field, because that was the most important thing. I was that kid at 5 years old that wanted to get my uniform on and look at myself in the mirror. I loved competing. My inability to cope as a player, and really, I think I did not have coaches that would really pluck into this emotional sense of myself. And we're going to talk later about this emotional tank. And those 2 things really set me up for situations later on in life where I was not setting myself up for success on the field and in life. So that's why I do what I do. And then getting in touch with PCA, they've developed PCA, which I'm now a part of. We've developed a system for it. Okay. And so Mike Scioscia says, and I love this, that a successful player has a system that they rely on to compete. And I think if we're teaching the mental game to kids, I'm big on the mental game, we want to give them a system. Why not give coaches a system to coach? And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. What kind of system can we put in place to coach more effectively? So next slide. So who is PCA? Well, PCA was founded in 1998 by, I believe, Jim Thompson. I'm right? Jim Thompson at Stanford. And since then, it's really grown. But yet at the same time, when I found out about PCA, that was the first time I found out about it. And I'd been in youth sports for a while. But now we have 80,000 coaches trained, over 3.3 million youth reach, which is only going up every day. We conduct 2,500 live workshops. And one of the most amazing things that anybody at any time can have access to is the PCADevZone.org. That is the site where we post all sorts of data, information, coaching tools, and things like that. So it's interesting. We're already reaching a lot of people, but we're just getting started. And that's how I think of it. So next slide. So what is positive coaching? Positive coaching. And really, I want to talk today about positive coaching, not just as a tagline, but as something that we can, number one, do, but number two, recognize the difficulty that we often have in being positive. All of us. I mean, not all of us are Bobby Knight, but I think all of us have within us this tendency to go negative because we are so competitive. So let's bring that to the table, that really all of us are going to struggle with this in some way. And so let's talk about it. What does that phrase mean to you? I'll pretend you raise your hand. What does it mean to you?
I think positive coaching to me means if a coach is just really encouraging the players, supporting them, having fun. I picture a coach that's just really just there for the kids, not for their own agenda, and just making sure that he gets to know his players well.
Great. Love that. Love that. So at PCA, we define it pretty simply, but I think it entails all the things that you've said. Creating an atmosphere that supports the best possible performance. And so when we talk about double goal coaching, it's not just winning, but winning in life lessons. Now, the great thing about that is we're really, if you step back, we're talking about the best possible performance really over a long-term period, because when we focus on winning but life lessons, we improve more and more and more and more, so that lo and behold, we win more. So it really is about winning in life lessons, and at the end of the day, being the best we could possibly be, so the best possible performance. So at PCA, we don't just talk about this stuff, and we obviously do, but we have some data and some people behind the scenes that have done some work for us on this. So the next slide. It's like, so Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, she's quoted saying there's a perception that the best way to get what you want out of employees or players is by negativity or threats, but negativity doesn't work as well as positivity. She goes on to say that positive emotions are especially contagious, and a leader's positive emotions are more contagious than anyone else's. So really, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the information that we have and we're willing to give you just on that PCADevZone.org site, because study after study, next slide, shows the benefits of a more positive approach. And of course, next slide, elite coaches agree. And next slide. The wonderful thing about this is not only do we have elite coaches agreeing, we have a board of advisors that are all on our board on a volunteer basis, that are comprised of people like Bruce Bochy, Steve Young, Doc Rivers, Julie Foudy, Brad Stevens, and all of these people not only agree with this, but are willing to dedicate and devote their time on a volunteer basis to help us get this message out. So, really, it's really nice that we have support from the best in the world. And what negativity does, and actually there's two guys here. You have Charlie Mayer with the Cleveland Indians, and Ken Ravizza, who is my mentor. It's with the Chicago Cubs now, but he was at Cal State Fullerton. Mind in the moment, always on the most important play. So we're going to go through just a quick memory-driven visualization. So I want you to think if you can bring into your memory and visualize that time where you were playing at your best. And I want you to remember the freedom you experienced to react and respond in the moment, always on the most important play, as Ken and Charlie say, the next play or the play you're in, the now or the next. Question. Was there any negativity there?
Nope.
Okay. So I think all of us, if you've been around long enough, have seen a coach maybe get a little bit overly negative towards the player. So now I want you to remember a time when you saw preferably a teenage or younger player and being greeted with negativity. I want you to look at their energy, their attitude, their presence. Notice, are they shoulders back and head up or down looking at the floor? And are they present, mind in the moment in your visualization?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
So really, another quick point, Pete Carroll and Michael Gervais have a company that they've taken Pete Carroll, Super Bowl champion coach of Seahawks. Michael Gervais is their sports psychologist, and they've taken a company and they've created it, and it's called Compete to Create. I love it. They take the attitude and the culture of the Seahawks and they bring it to corporate America. But the point I'm making is that the title of their company, Compete to Create, to me is so valuable. Joe Madden, Chicago Cubs manager, says that the greatest attribute he wants to see in a player is creativity. So when we think of creativity, can we be the greatest, most creative athlete when we're dealing with negativity and fear? I mean, imagine a painter. When you imagine a painter painting this beautiful painting, do you imagine them painting with this, fear that if they fail, they're going to not sell the painting, or do you imagine them being free and present? And so I think what negativity does is not only cuts us off from the moment, but I think it cuts us off from our creativity, our ability to adapt in the moment, like Derek Jeter did in the 1999, championship series, where out of nowhere, over the overthrow to the first base cutoff, he runs out of nowhere, grabs it, shuffles it home, and boom, Jeremy Giambi forgets to slide, boom, game over, right? So that's creativity, mind in the moment, present. When we go back to that place, there's no negativity. I don't think anybody would say there's any negativity in that place. So, well, that's the exercise we went through, kind of proves that. But asking some of the other, people out there, coaches, do you agree? Positivity works better, negativity distracts. What do we all agree?
I agree. I think positivity works better for me, but I think some athletes respond better when you're negative to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
when they get that like wake up call, like some kids feel like they need that pressure of a coach to be on them, and that's how they perform at their best.
Okay. I would agree with you. And I would say that there have been many negative coaches that have been very, very successful. Now, here's the thing. The question I would have, the follow-up to that is, if you wanted to have the most profound impact in terms of your players' ability to improve and be the best that they can be, to the largest number of players, do you think you can do that more with positivity or negativity?
Probably positivity.
Yeah. See, I think that's where we go with it. Negativity is going to fire up and inspire a small group of people. And I think it is. There's a reason why Bobby Knight was so successful. I keep talking about him, but then again, everybody knows about him because there's a 30 for 30. And if you didn't watch that thing and think, wow, that's what negative coaching looks like, then, so he was successful. But to me, what happens is that only a selective few players respond to that in a way that improves their performance, and a lot of players respond in a way that diminishes their performance. Mm-hmm. So we're not saying that negativity doesn't work, but we're saying positivity works better for more players. And being a psychotherapist, one of the things is quick to explain. Why is there so much negativity in sports? Now, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the things to really be aware of is that when we have a negative thought, that creates a synapse in our mind. Negative thoughts have synapses that are analogous to Velcro. They stick. If I asked you what you would remember from the morning you woke up till now, it's likely you would remember something neutral or negative. Our minds are wired to keep us alive. So, negativity, we need to be able to think about it and process it. Positivity, what they find neurologically is those synapses are more like Teflon. And if you know Teflon, it doesn't stick. So it's really important to me, I think, to understand that neurologically, as a part of the human condition, we all have a propensity to be negative. And hold on a second. What Barbara Fredrickson said was that positivity is contagious. Well, negativity is very contagious as well. And that's why she said the leaders being positive can really carry a team, because that's really where it starts. And I think it even starts with the coaches. So that to me is why there's so much negativity in sports, but that's an element of it. But can you tell me, what do you think affects the environment today where there is so much negativity in sports?
I think a lot of it at the youth level comes from pressure from parents. Parents trying to, I don't know if they're living vicariously through their kids or they feel that sports is the kid's ticket to college. But most of the negativity I find on my team that I'm coaching comes from the parents.
Which is great, and we can get that either to that later in this talk, or maybe you bring us in for another talk. Which is another thing I love about PCA is it talks about a second goal parent. Our parents focus more on character development and less on the scoreboard stats on the playing field. So I totally agree with you, and I think that's another reason why PCA is so needed in our community. So moving on, PCA's vision is really, like I said, is to offer some solutions, but really have it based in sports psychology research, and really provide examples from existing coaches of best practices that great coaches can develop. And so that's really what we're really looking at, is better athletes and better people. And you have support from PCA. Next slide. We have research-based coaching models to guide you. Practice tools, ongoing support. The books are great resources. Weekly talking points that get emailed to you. Even me, as a trainer, I get these talking points, and they're incredibly valuable. Some of them are things I hadn't thought of, and some are things I need to be reminded of over and over and over again. And of course, the where you get those are pcadevzone.org. So really, what makes great youth sports? What makes a great youth sports experience for kids? And let's talk about that for a second. And maybe you think of the kids that you currently work with, or maybe you think of what it was like for you growing up. But can you share with me what made either a great sports experience for you or other kids, or what ideally would make a great experience for a kid?
I think one of the best things is when the kids are having fun and they've got friends on the team. I know for my own kids, when they're on teams where they feel like the coach is really working to bring the group together as a team, and they're doing fun things, outside of the team, they enjoy it more than if it's a new team and they don't know people and they're not really together with the team. So I think that's, for my kids, that's probably number one.
That's great. And actually, that's exactly what the first next slide thing that we talk about at PCA is really helping the kids feel connected to their teammates, connected to their coach. There's a lot of stuff out there if you haven't heard about it, which I believe Carol Dweck talked about fixed mindsets versus growth mindset. And the growth mindset is believing that improvement and possibilities are available, versus a fixed mindset, which is very focuses on a very limited ability in terms of an individual or group. So we really want to inspire kids to believe they can improve, to instill this growth mindset in children. And we also want them to feel proud about acting with integrity. So if your players got these three things, what do you think might happen to them? Could I get somebody else to talk about that?
I think they'll succeed. I think they'll play better, and I think they'll also come back next year and want to play again. Yes,
I totally agree. And one of the things, and like I said, one of the things I love about PCA is a lot of these things that we talk about that to me, PCA, working with them, we really drill it down to a few basic concepts to focus on, because I think all of us have this grand view of, yes, we want kids to have fun and we want them to be connected and all that, but PCA does the work for us. And they say, well, if we focus on these things, we're going to achieve that result. So next slide. We have tools in our coaching model so that we can help kids getting connected, improve, and also, stay in tune with their integrity. So when it comes to being connected, we have what we call an emotional tank. And all of us have this, and it really is just a great way of explaining when we feel validated, when we feel as though we're connected to each other, when we feel valued. And so we really help coaches focus on that emotional tank, to acknowledge it, and not only acknowledge it, but to put things in play while we're coaching these athletes that continually fill up this emotional tank. And of course, being very hyperly aware of when you see an athlete that's struggling with an emotional tank issue. The other thing is improving. We have the elm tree of mastery. See, what a lot of us are facing in this Western culture of, win, 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 and succeed and accomplish and all these things. I think all of us would say, we live in a place where it's, even adults, it's a stressful time. We tend to have this outcome-based, scoreboard-based, statistics-based definition of success. We look at our outcome, our scoreboard, our statistics, and say, am I successful, am I not? And at PCA, we'd like to offer like a different perspective. We want to have more of a mastery definition of success. And the elm tree of mastery focuses on E, effort. And actually, if you want to get a little even deeper, purposeful effort, because we want that effort to have a purpose. L, learning. I think all of us can agree that sometime around 8 or 9 or 10 years old, when all of a sudden that homework gets overloaded and we come home and our parents are writing us about school, that L word gets turned into a negative word. Learn. Well, we want to turn that into a positive word. What an awesome opportunity to learn, to discover new possibilities. So we really want to focus on that. And the M is mistakes are okay. And actually, the best mistakes are the mistakes done with the E, purposeful effort, creating mistakes at the max effort. And if we do that, then we go back to the L. We get an opportunity to learn. So this to us is a mastery definition of success. And we're really trying to promote this. So this is how we help coaches work connection, improvement, and integrity. And, I'm sure all of you know this, but, Herm Edwards, Understanding Legacy, you can watch that. Can we watch that?
Yep.
And I think one of the things he said, which is so important to me and to all of us at PCA, is when your book of life is written, will it say that you made a difference? Now, this is a wonderful tool, and it actually works very well. And I could actually do this right now, but I won't for the sake of our time. But you could do this with probably athletes, any athlete older than 11 or 12 years old. And you could even do this with a group of people. You could do it with a team. You could do it with a company. And what you do is I have this idea of, well, how do we know people care about making a difference? Aha! I can get you to trick people into seeing that they really want to make a difference. How do we do it? Well, here's the deal. If you do a little visualization, so it might be the end of a season, the end of your career, or the end of your life, and you imagine being in that place and looking back on the season, looking back on your career, looking back on your life. Tell me the things that you would like to see as you visualize that. I have never, in the 20 or 30 times I've done this exercise, had someone say, I wish I won more. I wish I had more home runs. I wish I had a better statistics. 100% of the time, people talk about things like, I hope I spent time with family. I hope I had a good impact on people. I hope I connected well with my teammates. I hope we had fun. So that's a great exercise to show that, to me, all of us, even Bobby Knight, who probably thought he was creating making a difference. And he maybe was for a handful of players, but not for the hundreds that he coached, wants to make a difference. So to us, what PCA is doing is helping you not only access that part of you that really wants to make a difference, but giving you those tools to do it, one step at a time. So, moving on, PCA's model of coaching, it really, starts with this idea of a double goal coach. And it's bridging these two wonderful concepts together. We are all competitors. Winning is awesome. Losing is not as awesome. And we want to win. That's just who we are. But at the same time, we also want to teach life lessons. And, Mike Trout right now is having one heck of a year. He's batting .335. That still means that he's getting out, let's see here, 6.5 times out of 10. And I think all of us, because you are adults, would admit that life is really, there's a lot more losing that goes on, or letdowns, or kids not doing things the way you want them to, or things not happening the way you want them to. There's a lot more of that happens in our lives than things going our way. I think we could all agree with that. So why not only help our kids strive to win, which really is the definition of competition, competing, strive to win, and teach them life lessons, teach them how to go out in life. And, when things don't happen the way they want it to, learn how to adapt, learn how to creatively adapt and adjust and recover, learn how to support each other when things get going rough. So next goal. So next, is that 2 slides in a row accidentally? Or is there a reason why there's...
No, because when you print it out, it shows the circles separate and then it shows the circles combined.
Oh, okay.
So it just prints out the animation as 2 separate slides.
Oh, got it. Okay, so we want to combine them together. I'm guessing that next slide is we would really want to combine them together. And really, we at PCA think that, the starting point for, is double goal coaching, and the tools, the 3 simple tools that can be brought in to the coaching experience is, number 1, filling that emotional tank. We have all sorts of information on how to do that. Number 2, really creating a mastery definition of success. And the mastery definition comes from that elm tree, really making sure that elm tree gets nourishment, effort, learning, making mistakes okay. And number 3, honoring the game. In baseball, we talk about the baseball gods, and we talk about the fact that the game knows. And having that ability to talk to kids about these concepts that, that when you honor the game, there's a benefit to it. There's a benefit to knowing you played the game the right way. And whether you talk about the funny baseball gods, or the fact that the game itself knows what you're doing and what you're not doing, that helps, I think, kids understand that there is value in honoring the game. I think that's 22. Am I?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
All right.
So feedback.
How'd you feel going through that with a little bit of pressure?
I like it. I think I could get it done. I could do it better, but I like it. Okay. I always start. I just have a mind that just, you probably can tell, I could talk for hours about things.
Yeah.
And typically my feedback is to be more concise. Typically my feedback is like, that's great, but that was a lot of information, and maybe less information. So I think probably the game plan for me would through trial and error, just develop a way to know that line between good information and too much information. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that fit for you, but
yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say that you gave too much information, but I think you gave a lot of information in the front of the workshop that could be saved for later on when you get to the individual. So, I always say the intro is literally like the teaser. It's the trailer of the movie where you want to keep them wanting more. So if you tell them too much in the introduction, then when you get to the principal, they're going to be like, oh, I already know this. So I like the intro to literally be the teaser, to have them think, okay, this is why filling the emotional tank is important. When we get to that principle, I'm going to tell you how, and I'm going to give you some tools to do it. So that, in terms of the amount of talking and information, that would be my first suggestion, is when you go through it, just to, and I have specifics that I would just wait and save some of it for later on when you get into the principles. But overall, Chris, I love your whole demeanor. I love the way I can tell that you're comfortable talking to people, and I can tell you definitely have a presence, and you're going to capture people's attention. Your choice of words was excellent, and I think that's one of the things that is such a benefit of PCA is that it is a system. But you also threw in a little phrase, and I think you almost went over it so quickly, and I thought that is such a perfect phrase to say that you're going to learn some things today that you hadn't thought of, and there's going to be other things that you're going to need reminders of. And you used it for talking points, but I like to bring that up in the beginning of workshops, because there are people in the room that are probably the most positive coaches you've ever met, and they're going to sit there and think, well, I already do this, I don't really need to know this. And there's other people that are going to be sitting there with their arms crossed saying, yeah, no, positivity's not for me, it's not going to work. So I think just acknowledging that in the beginning is really helpful to do. I like a lot of the things that you did. I thought you are a talker, which I am as well. And I've learned very quickly, my introduction to the workshop used to be about a half hour, which is about what yours is. And now it's down to about 15 minutes, because I'd like to use the principal time to really dig into it and get them challenging and get them thinking. I use the intro to the workshop more of like an inspiration. Like, here's the background, here's the details, here's who PCA is. Now we're going to hit the ground running, and let's get into how we're going to help. So,
it's interesting, because I literally, I had a moment where I was like, too much in the front. Let's save this. So I was there with you. I thought, I got kind of rolling. So we're, a lesson I can learn.
I often say too that it's important to know everything that's in the introduction, so you know what to take out. If we gave you less, you wouldn't have the background, because something, you might talk to the partner a couple days ahead of time, and they might say, hey, I'm interested in what's in this for the coaches. And then you would hit the parts about, we give you talking points, and we give you resources, and we give you all these things. You might also talk to a partner that says, we've been a partner of PCA for 5 years now, 10 years now. We know everything you get, just get into the principles. So you need to be able to know it so that you can skip over it, or how fast to move through it. So I think your personal story is great. I think that's so important for the coaches to be able to connect to you. And you did that really well, and you're really vulnerable right up front. And I think that's really important. I would love to hear a little bit also about your coaching experience.
I forgot in grad school, I coached kids. I forgot to say that. I just realized that a little while ago.
So just to help me connect to you a little bit more, that obviously you were a high level athlete, which gives you tons of credibility. But I also like to know that you were a coach, and, some of the things that you struggled with, or some of the things that this could help you. You might want to, that might be something you throw in later, but I would definitely put that in as well. The part about, you underachieved, even though you played it, in the minor leagues, you couldn't cope with things. And I think that's a really important value of PCA. And you also use the term, this is a system, and we're giving you a system. And I think that's probably the biggest benefit of a PCA partnership, is that it is systematic and it's simple. I always tell people this, I'm going to give you concepts that are not brand new, and it's not rocket science. It's simple things that you probably do every day. But now I'm going to give you the language to be able to share that with the players, with the parents, with other. I think it's great. Just real quick, I have a couple little wordsmithing. Ruben will get on your next demo, I'm sure, and he's a wordsmithing kind of guy. So he picks on you. So I have to do Ruben justice here. So this slide that says who is PCA, these are actually annual numbers. So it's not that we've coached 80,000 coaches. This is about 80,000 coaches a year that we reach.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you for letting me. Annual national statistics. Should have seen that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just wanted to put that out. And sometimes, I get through all these. Sometimes I just show this slide and go, if you're not familiar with us, this is our impact. This is how many people we impact a year through what we do. Boom. Go on to the next one. So,
okay.
I figured if you read the slides, they'll read them. But sometimes if you don't read the slides, it'll make people want to look at them more. So that's just kind of my psychotherapy.
I like that.
Yeah. Let me see. Oh, the Barbara Fredrickson quote, I think that was great. I think it was fine. You took a little extra time with that, talking about negativity versus positivity. And I think that's great, because that's your background. And if that's your background, that's your sweet spot, that's your magic, use that. I like to hear more of the psychology behind a lot of this, because that's what you do. So I always say, like, if you're a double gold coach of the year for coaching youth basketball, use that. I was a third grade teacher, so I use a lot of activity and interaction and getting the coaches up and moving, because that's what I'm good at. I never played minor league baseball, but I can get a room talking in 17 different ways, at the drop of a hat. So use your strengths, and that's definitely a strength of yours. Some of the things like when you said, Visualization. You talked about visualization a lot. And I always say, ask rather than tell. So you had an opportunity, and I'm thinking in my head, like, how would I have done this differently? When you were talking about just body language of somebody that's faced with positivity versus negativity, you talked about shoulder slumping. I mean, I think that is such a quick, easy activity to get a person to stand up. Hey, can I volunteer? Come on up for a second. What would your body language look like if you had a coach that was being very negative to you? And the person would slump. I mean, I do that a lot. I'll have two coaches get up and say, okay, you're going to do the same drill. You're going to be coached by a positive coach. You're going to be coached by a win at all cost coach. How would you dribble the soccer ball down there around the cones and back? How would you do it? And it's so simple and easy, but it's something that people will remember because it's not you talking, it's a visual. So, and usually volunteers get into it. The first volunteer you ever get at the workshop is going to be the most energetic. So, usually that's just another way to do it.
I like that.
Yeah, I loved all the quotes, and I love that you told us who the people were. That's one thing a lot of sports people forget sometimes. Like you mentioned Pete Carroll, and people assume that everybody knows who Bobby Knight is and everyone knows who Pete Carroll is. But a lot of times when I hear these demos and people call out names, if the coaches in the room don't all know who that person is, your story just lost all its credibility.
Yeah.
So it was great that you mentioned all the names and the teams they coached for and what they do. Interestingly, we use Bobby Knight a lot in our workshops until I had a trainer a few years ago that was actually coached by Bobby Knight. He's in his mid-70s, and he played basketball for Bobby Knight. And he said, Bobby Knight has a terrible reputation, but he is one of the most caring coaches I ever had in my life. And he gave us story after story about how Bobby Knight would invite him over to his house for dinner, and he would go pick up a guy that needed, loan a player money if they needed money to help their mother who was sick. And, he said, the problem with Bobby Knight is he couldn't control his temper and he was too passionate. And that's the reputation he got. But he was one of the most caring coaches that he ever had. And I was like, I don't know what to do with that. But
I also think that we could get into this for a while, but I think that you could see in that documentary and I think there was, instead of rolling with the changes, he revolted against the changes. And I think he became more. So I wouldn't be surprised if when this guy was playing with Bobby Knight, 50 years ago or however long ago, that Bobby Knight was like that. But once the millennial type attitudes start coming in, instead of Bobby Knight finding a way to roll with it, he went against it. And
absolutely. And I intentionally, when you get to the slide that says about negativity, you will get every single time you do a workshop, you will get a coach that says negativity works. So I did that on purpose because I just wanted to see how you would field that question. When it says, do you agree positivity works better, negativity distracts? You're going to get somebody that says negativity works. And so just to be able to be prepared to be able to handle that. And I thought you did it very well. Negativity does work. It works in the moment. It is, you even mentioned it's fight or flight. It's survival. We do respond to negativity. It works for a smaller group of people, not the large span. So I thought you handled that really well. I just wanted to put that out there.
That was good. Thanks.
You'll get pushback on that. What else? Oh, the other thing too, and I guess I don't know how much of a student of Barbara Fredrickson you are, but she talks about positivity building and broadening, which is exactly what you were talking about with creativity. That's one of her big studies, that negativity limits and positivity broadens and builds, which is exactly what we're talking about. So that's Barbara Fredrickson as well. Let me see what else. Oh, the talking points email that you get, they will actually get that from text to sign in. Just another bonus of texting to sign in. They'll automatically be enrolled to receive that talking points for the next 6 weeks. So that's just something that you can mention. I think you said that you can get it on the Development Zone website, which they can do also, but they will get that automatically.
Okay, cool.
Little detail.
One quick thing I saw in some of the one of the other workshops where she said, send this and wait for a response, because I guess you get a response. The PCA talk that I went to with Nomar Garcia-Parra and Mia Hamm, for some reason the response system wasn't working, and I think 5 or 10 minutes were wasted for trying to wait for people to get the response, and no one got it. So I just figured, if you've done it, you put it down. Let's not worry about whether you get the response. I don't know if you do that.
I agree. And what I always do too is I always bring a paper sign-up sheet too. So just in case somebody's having phone issues, or I was in high school the other day, and inside the building of the school, you had no Wi-Fi. There was no cell signal, so nobody could sign in. And I'm thinking, this is great, cool. So I always just bring a paper sign in too. And if there's 100 coaches in the room, that's kind of a pain. But if there's only 15 to 20, I just have them write it down. The other thing, again, this is I call it the Rubin word picking. When you get to this slide, you said that we have tools. Just to be clear, these are the principles. So we have 3 principles: the emotional tank, Elm Tree of Mastery, and honoring the game are the 3 core principles that go throughout every workshop that we do, whether we're talking to coaches or parents or athletes. And then we're going to give you tools for each principle.
Got it.
So you just mentioned real quick.
I think what you're really saying is connect, improve, and integrity are the broad principles. The more narrow principles are the emotional tank, tree mastery, and then the tools are how we help them do that. With
this slide right before it is where we get the coaches to talk about a meaningful athlete experience. And this is where I have the coaches get in a group and talk about a meaningful athlete experience that you've either had as an athlete or that you've coached and what was involved in that. So this is basically the culminating research where we have found, when we've asked this question to, thousands of coaches and athletes and asked them, why was this a meaningful experience for you? We've put it together and come up with that they felt connection, they felt improvement, and they felt integrity. So this was kind of the vast research that we've done. And this research is actually connected directly to our principles. So we know that athletes need to feel connected. The first principle is filling the emotional tank. We also know that kids need to believe they can improve. And our second principle is the Elm Tree of Mastery. That's how we'll do that. And then the third one is kids need to be proud to integrity and our principles. So this is kind of just connecting the research with our principles.
Got it.
So the connection, improvement, and integrity part isn't really like a specific principle of PCA. It's just, that's what we found. Those are your answers. And here's honoring the game. Here's the principle. So the Herm Edwards piece, again, I think you did a nice job about talking about that, but I think I would love to see you look for opportunities to have the coaches reflect a little bit more. Like you said, if I had more time, I would do this. I think this is a really valuable activity for the coaches to think about. I've heard a few trainers say, at your retirement dinner, what do you want to be known for? Or if you run into a player that you coached 20 years ago, or if you have a player right now that's 6 years old, what do you want them to say about you when they become an adult? What will they remember about your team? So I think this is an activity that's really valuable in the beginning of the workshop. This tugs on emotions. This makes coaches realize that they have a really big impact. And it could also be sparked by asking them, who is a coach that played a big role in your life? Mm-hmm. Who's a coach that, what made an impact on you? And it doesn't necessarily, it's not, some people have said a coach that made a positive impact. Other people have just said coach that made an impact. Because sometimes we learn a lot from the negative coaches we've had too.
Yeah.
But just to show them the bigger picture here, that you're coaching in this season, on this team, in this spot, but the impact that you have can last a lifetime. It can last 20, 30 years. And I've even asked coaches at workshops before to imagine a coach that yelled at them when they were a kid. Mm-hmm. And close your eyes, just picture this coach that was disappointed in you. And, I'll say, what was the coach wearing? What was happening? What did it look like? And then I asked some of them, how many of you had that happen 10 years ago or more? How many of you had this happen 20 years ago? I've had coaches that have sat in the room and said, 40 years ago, I had a coach scream at me, and I remember what he said. I remember what he was wearing. I remember what happened. I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, but I remember a coach that screamed at me when I was 10 years old. That's impact. That's powerful.
That goes to show you that whole neurological thing, right?
Yeah,
we stick to those things.
I love it. I know sometimes I'm taking notes when you guys are going, and I'll take down like comments and feedback, and other times I'm just stealing things that you're saying. So I definitely have Velcro and Teflon written down in here.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. But yeah, I love just in the beginning of the workshop having the coaches think about a coach that made an impact on them. And this is a great place to do it. And then have them think about what impact do they want to make? Mm-hmm. And then are they doing it? What are they doing in their everyday practice, in their demeanor, how they're responding to coaches or to the kids? Is that the kind of coach they want to be?
So, one of the things that I do some talks about, in mental health and in authenticity and all that. And one of the things that I have this hopeful fantasy of awakening that person that has yet to awaken. And one of the things that I try to do is imagine that friend that you watch that, when they get emotionally triggered, they go crazy. And then you ask them what happened, and they're like, oh, I was calm, and to really challenge people in a way. And I'll probably over time figure out how to do it, to say, it's easy to sit here and say, positivity and, but but let's see if we can like also bring in this idea that when we get emotionally charged and triggered, that's really, where do we have the ability to kind of check in with ourselves and see either are we able to manage it and deal with it, or are we at least able to look back and say, you know what, I could find a way to stay under control a little better. So that's kind of one of the things that I like to, because it drives me crazy when, as a therapist, when people say, yeah, I do that. Oh, of course, sure. And then 5 minutes later, they're going crazy and they're not even aware of it,
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a very good point. The only other part that I commented was with this double goal coach model, when the two winning and the life lessons come together. I don't know if that's shifted for you, but
yeah,
the last one, the double goal coach model, just having the coaches think, we're all there to win. That's why we're all there coaching. But thinking about what specifically are the life lessons that can be taught right now at your practice. Every single minute of every single practice, there's a life lesson to be learned. So I like to just have them, sometimes I'll bring a ball and I'll have them toss the ball around. Sometimes I'll just have them call out. Let's see if we can name 10 lessons that sports has taught you. Because I think sometimes as coaches, we're so in the moment as well, thinking about how do I get these little kids to hit a baseball, or how do I get them to shoot a foul shot, or how do I get them to stop hitting on each other, that we're not actually thinking, if we think in terms of the life lessons of teamwork, resilience, bouncing back, handling defeat, keeping cool under pressure, if we really focus on those lessons, the wins are going to come. So the only comment I wrote down was just spending a little bit more time just talking about, so the coaches are realizing what life lessons there are to be learned in sports, and how there's really no better place. Jim Thompson often says there's no better place to learn some of these life lessons. You're not going to learn them in math class, but you'll learn them on a field or on a court or in a pool. And the life lessons are what's going to stick with you forever. The wins and losses, you're going to forget that probably by the end of the season. But the resilience and the determination and the time management and the respecting adults, that's something that's going to stick with you forever. And these kids that you're coaching are the future leaders. So we want to make sure we teach them well, not just about the wins and losses. So that was just an area that I thought you could have just spent a little.
Yeah, I think now that I know that those slides come together, I think that's a great way of like kind of bringing them together. Yeah.
Yeah. And another good point to make too is, okay, so we know striving to win and teaching life lessons are the goal of a double goal coach. We all can say that we are very focused on teaching life lessons. When does winning supersede teaching the life lesson? When in your sport would this happen? I mean, it's just a good question to put out there. Everybody's a double goal coach when the scoreboard says you're winning.
Well, the thing that I see out in the community, and I'm seeing this in like high income areas, what you see is, I think so many win at all costs have gotten thrown to the curb through parent lawsuits and things like that. That you see almost the opposite. You see a lot of coaches that are very laissez-faire, and I don't want to give conditioning after practice. So like the last coach I worked with who had gotten suspended for whatever mistreatment that didn't happen. It was all based on playing time. Decided he was going to let the kids determine their own conditioning after practice, because he was getting parents calling, how can you run baseball players running it, so it's like it's developing that balance to like where you can, to me it's like where you're not laissez-faire but you're not win at all costs. Like it's connection with some sort of hierarchical relationship.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. So I think, Chris, I think you're definitely, way ahead of where a lot of people are at this point in the game. And I think, your blessing and your curse is that you've got so much up here because you do this so much with people. And what sometimes I have to remind myself that the coaches in the room have no clue what this is. So keeping it simple for them is sometimes more of a challenge than giving them too much information. Because even things that seem like they come, second nature to you. Oh yeah, everybody knows about visualization. Everybody knows about this. Everybody, they don't. And sometimes I've been so surprised by coaches that ask me questions at workshops, and I think, well, that's kind of an obvious question, isn't it? Like I don't say that, but in my head I'm going, how do you not know that? Yeah. And I realize some of these people that are stepping up to coach are volunteers that may have never even played the sport. So they're scrambling at, oh my gosh, I need help. These kids are like beating each other up in line. I'm not even worried about soccer yet. Help me. So I think, for the higher level coaches, a lot of this stuff is great. I'm not telling you to dumb down anything you're doing. I'm
Hmm.
just saying that sometimes it's just important to remember to, sometimes the simplest way to explain something is the most impactful.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I
that
think
would be my feedback.
that'll be my challenge, but I'm, you know, I'm well aware of that. So, I mean, I think concise and to the point. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
This
Awesome.
is this
Well, I'm
this is
excited.
this is great. This is fun. I really like. I've been, you know, it's so interesting. I've been doing this kind of on my own,
Mm-hmm.
just creating my own little business doing this stuff, and it's kind of taxing doing it on your own, you know,
Yeah.
because you know, I have to, and a lot of it is my own insecurity, but you know what I realized with PCA is that having PCA at my back, so I can do likely what I've been doing all along with a little bit more concise message, but with the
Mhm.
PCA at my back is going to be a little bit, you know, it's nice. It's,
It
you know,
is. It is.
you
And you
know,
have a ton of support. And it's nice because you're not going out doing it on your own. And, it's great when you have a whole group of like minded people behind you and they're actually getting the work for you. You don't have to go out and sell yourself. Marty Reed's going to be doing that for you. And she's going to set you up. And they set you up perfectly to walk in and do your stuff. And then you walk out of there like, wow, I just made an impact on those 30
okay.
coaches there who are now coaching, 50 kids.
So one of the questions do you have a couple seconds for questions?
I do. Yep.
Um, Now, how I'm guessing PCA does we deliver on a on a volunteer basis and on a pay basis, right? So some organizations, I'm guessing we do what we do as a community outreach, and some organizations, I'm pretty sure. I mean, there is some income generation. I mean, it's a
Oh, yeah.
nonprofit, but
Yeah, there is. So it depends on the workshop partner. So there are some, we call them third party workshops, like LA 84 is a third party workshop that will, donate a certain number of workshops to do for this certain soccer organization. A lot of the major league ball, like the Dodgers, they might give PCA thousands of dollars and say, you need to go into low income areas and do X number of coach
okay,
workshops. So, but there's also, then there's private schools and public schools and high schools and basketball organizations that actually pay PCA to have a 1-year partnership, 2-year partnership, 3-year partnership. And that can look a lot of different ways. They can do 10 workshops a year. They can do 5 workshops a year.
got
And
it.
that's where they pay for the partnership.
And another thing, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Alan, there's a Mind Up program. Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah.
And it's really big here in the South Bay. And Alan said something about partnering up with the Mind Up program to bring some of the stuff that we have. And that's not really a sports-based program. That's more of a mindfulness in schools-based program. So do we do that too?
Well, it's funny because for years we were just focused on sports, and more in the last couple of years, we've been asked to go into non-sport specific groups and talk to them. Like we have a workshop we do for business leaders now that's based on these same 3 principles, but it's kind of a business model on how to bring a team together that in corporate America.
Hmm.
So I think Alan especially, everybody's different, every chapter is different, but Alan doesn't turn down an opportunity. So, if he'll explore something like that and it seems to be a good fit, then he'll pitch it and he'll work it. But I'm
Yeah.
not saying that that's something we do everywhere around the country. It just depends on the market and depends on who's selling it.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious because he said that, and that was a long time. I would love to do that because I was, I want to get into the schools and stuff, but
Yeah,
it's hard as an individual just going in and saying, "Hey,"
it is.
but yet it's really hard to it's hard to partner up with people that I'm not totally on board with. Like there's a guy that does a nonprofit. What's the oh God, I can't remember the word, but there's an acronym for the word forget about me, I love you, family.
Yeah, family.
And he's a part of the nonprofit that goes forget about me, I love you, and they do a lot of the stuff. I guess Rutgers one year had family on the back of their jerseys too, and I love the message, but I can't buy into forget about me.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's a little too polar. It's a little too
Mhm.
like I don't matter, my team matters. No, I think
Yeah.
my team matters more than me, but I sure as heck matter. I just got to
Yeah.
figure out a way to balance it. So this is cool because I really feel like everything that is being presented is right in line with what I'm trying to promote. So cool, love it.
Good. All right, Chris, that's awesome. Well, you know what? The next one that you do is a practice for the final. Alan can usually get you into the office to do a final demo for PCA staff people. So the next one that you do for me would be practice for that final. So you would pick a principle. So you can pick any one of the principles that you'd like to do. And it's about 20 minutes of diving into the principle. And then I will connect you with Alan so that you can pick a time when you can actually come into the office and do it.
Okay. And I'm guessing that that's where the tools come in. You pick a principle and you explain all the different tools, like emotional tank would be player of the day and things like that.
Yep. So I mean, if you look on the Google group homepage, it will have some demonstration, some, other ones that people have done. You can watch and see what they've done, but it's basically taking that chunk of the workshop that if you do emotional tank, it's taking the section of the workshop that's those 15 slides or whatever and facilitating that part of the workshop. So cool. Most of the time it's, what is the principle? Let's think of a scenario. There's a scenario there where you think about how this would apply to your team, where we have the coaches think about how you would handle this. And then we give them the PCA tools to help them figure out how to handle this.
Okay, cool. Lastly,
right.
I took a screenshot of us doing this. Is it okay if I post it on my social media?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. All right, cool.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
All right, cool. Thanks. So I will contact you when I'm ready to do that. Maybe we could do like early next week.
That sounds great. And
okay, I'll let you know.
I have a lot of other people going next week for their demos. So if you want to jump in on any of it, it's always more fun when there's more than just me and one person. So if you want to jump in on any of those, you're welcome to. If you have a date and time, I can tell you when other people are going. Because sometimes it's fun if you watch somebody else go and then you go too. So it's more of a group thing.
Okay. Tuesday mornings and Wednesdays, I'm pretty free. So, but I'll shoot you an email just to remind you that.
Sounds great. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.